You know, we all wonder about this. How do we make memories that actually stick? Well, today we're going to dig up a surprisingly modern answer from a place you might not expect, ancient Greece, over 2,000 years ago.
Right? I mean, whether you're cramming for a huge exam or you're just trying to remember where you put your keys for the 10th time this week, the question is always the same. How do we make the important stuff stay put? Well, it turns out one of the most powerful and honestly practical answers doesn't come from some high-tech modern lab. It comes from the mind of one of the greatest thinkers in all of history, the philosopher Plato.
So let's dive into it. We are going to unpack Plato's wax tablet metaphor. It's this incredible mental model he wrote about in his dialogue Theaetetus, and believe me, it is just as relevant today as it was back then.
Okay, so what is this wax tablet metaphor all about? It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. Let's look at the three core parts.
First, Plato asks us to imagine our mind. Picture it as a blank block of wax. It's this receptive, raw material just waiting for something to be imprinted on it.
And what makes the imprint? Our experiences. Think about everything you see, hear, and feel. Each of those moments acts like a unique stamp or a seal, ready to be pressed right into the wax of your mind.
Which brings us to the final piece of the puzzle. The memory itself. A memory is simply the impression that experience leaves behind in the wax. And here's the key. How clear and how deep that memory is depends completely on the quality of that impression.
And this is just so profound, right? This is a huge shift in how we think about memory. Plato got it. Memory isn't some passive filing cabinet where we just store stuff. No, it's an active process. It's about making an impression. So, if memory is all about impression, how do we make those impressions deep and lasting? Well, Plato's metaphor actually gives us the answer. It points to three key factors.
Plato's model basically gives us a clear recipe for learning. First up, attention. You have to be focused. Without it, you can't even make an initial imprint. Second, emotion. This acts like adding pressure to the stamp, pushing it deeper into the wax. And finally, repetition. This is what hardens the impression, almost like letting the wax cool and set, making that memory permanent.
He even thought about our state of mind. To form really clear, deep memories, our mental wax has to be soft and pure. Think about being focused, calm, and ready to learn. But if we're stressed out, tired, or distracted, that wax becomes hard or dirty or uneven, and that's when we get those distorted, faded memories that just won't stick.
Okay, now this is where things get truly fascinating. This ancient metaphor, it isn't just beautiful poetry. It lines up almost perfectly with what modern neuroscience is telling us about how our brains actually work.
Just look at this mapping. It's incredible. What Plato called a deep impression, that's what neuroscientists today call encoding strength, how strongly a new piece of information gets processed. His idea of soft wax, a mind that's ready to learn, that is a perfect description of neuroplasticity, our brain's amazing ability to forge new connections. And hardening the shape? That is a dead ringer for memory consolidation, the process our brain uses to stabilize a memory for the long haul. It's just astonishing. He was basically describing biology thousands of years before we had the tools to even see it.
So what do we do with all this? Let's get really practical. Let's see how this ancient model can completely transform a modern classroom, or really any learning environment.
The strategies just flow right from the metaphor. Want to create deeper imprints? Engage multiple senses: sight, sound, touch. Want to keep that mental wax soft and receptive? Reduce stress in the room. To harden the memory and make it last, use spaced repetition over time. And to make that initial encoding stronger, ask reflective questions that force you to think about it more deeply. It all just clicks into place.
And all of this leads to a pretty profound conclusion. Plato's metaphor is a powerful reminder that education isn't just about dumping information from one brain to another. It's about the art of making a lasting impression.
So let's end with a question for all of us to think about. In our work, in our studies, in our daily lives, are we just making shallow marks in the sand that'll fade away? Or are we creating deep, lasting impressions? Thanks so much for joining me.